Right.
I'm gonna bitch about it. Yeah.
Okay. Whenever there is too much bitching happening, this will happen. So I have my part done with. So this is the signal to stop bitching.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. The fart
Right.
gun.
I don't have any of these, so.
So
And then she said, "What the fuck?" And then I was like, "Whoa!" And I pulled up my pants and I started. Oh shit, we're recording. Hi guys. Hey.
Hey.
Hey, hello.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Thomas.
Hi, guys.
So the first episode of season 3, and
2020.
yes, and this
Mom,
season,
hello, I'm famous. I'm in the TV.
and this season we want to dedicate a bit to Power Apps
Yes.
and citizen developers. And this episode is going to be a little bit special since we have Tomasz, our power hacker, with us, and Marijn will have some challenges for Thomas to overcome during this session, right?
Right.
I'm gonna bitch about it. Yeah.
Okay. Whenever there is too much bitching happening, this will happen. So I have my part done with. So this is the signal to stop bitching.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. The fart
Right.
gun.
I don't have any of these, so.
Okay. Anyway, before we go to the challenge, Tomasz, you have been around with the Power Platform for a while, and also the whole notion around citizen developers. Since this show is a bit about adoption, so what are kind of your 50 cents about adoption of Power Platform, the whole citizen development in general? What's kind of your take on that?
Right. So maybe. Sorry.
Is it
I
cool?
interrupted
Not
you
cool?
again.
So,
Sorry.
Tomasz, the floor is yours.
Yeah, go on.
Right. So maybe you have realized that last year, like in June during the summer holidays, I did my small survey where I was asking Twitter users about their experience with citizen developers, about their journey, about how do they think, I mean, the reasons why do they think citizen developers actually appear in the companies, what are the benefits and threats. I posted mainly to the Microsoft community, and therefore the majority of the answers are related to the Power Platform and other tools that are in Microsoft stack for citizen developers. However, what I still, the major takeaway from that survey and from then my analysis was that the citizen developers, as we call them, they don't exist in every company. These are not the people that were hired as citizen developers or as developers in a company. These were usually people that were working in other departments like accountancy or financials or HR even. And sometime or at a certain moment of their work, they realize that they're actually missing tools, or that the tools that the IT is giving them are just not efficient or are not doing the work they're expecting to. So they were looking to other tools on the market or maybe in the IT landscape that they could use to fulfill these gaps. And because the majority of the companies that today work in Office 365 and Power Platform is somehow seamlessly present there. I mean, unless IT is not cutting it off or disabling the licenses, users are able to use Power Platform. And my experience with this platform, as said, is that I'm coming from the process side, so as Marijn, Nintex. So for me, it was much easier to adopt Power Automate than Power Apps. Like the first time I saw Power Apps, I was like, no way, I will never use that. It's way too complex.
I have a similar
experience, customer, yeah, it's like then 2 years later, customer asked me, hey, can you do this project for me in Power Apps? And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And somehow slowly I adopted this tool. But I mean, it's all about determination. So if you have these citizen developers, that really want to do something. They do want to create the tools to make their work efficient, to make their work like less frustrative. Then they will look to Power Apps. And today, this adoption is, especially for the users who have some experience with Excel, formulas in Excel, and have a little bit of this technical attitude. It is not very difficult because there is also a huge community and a huge amount of information on the internet. So like today, whenever I have an issue with Power Apps or Power Automate, I look up community forum, and there is like always someone who's been there already.
Yeah.
So
I
for the
just
most
call you Tomasz.
all right, but really, like for most of the issues, for most of the questions I have when I'm working with Power Platform, there is something already written somewhere in the internet.
So would you in summary say that the citizen developer is like a technical super user, something like that?
Wow, technical super user. I would say that these are just regular users with this technical.
A regular user.
Yeah, these are regular users, but they do have to have a little bit of this technical, knowledge or I call this attitude that they just are. It is easier for them to acknowledge new technologies or to maybe work with new application software, that they have like a big picture what they want to achieve, and with small steps they're just trying to achieve the goal. So
it's somebody who feels at ease with technology, somebody who's not afraid of technology, somebody who's not afraid of trying something out. It's probably the person who already made a few macros somewhere,
possibly,
a person that already can Google for something if they want to learn something, if they want to find something, if they want to build something. And slowly they will, gradually they will go into stuff like this. Cool. So this will probably be the people when in all the SharePoint, they will probably already be creating SharePoint designer workflows and info platforms.
Right. So that another thing that I found out when I was doing all these researches around citizen developers was that I found a couple of reports by Gartner and Forrester. And for example, report from Gartner from I think 2017 was saying that by 2024 there will be like a lack. I mean, on the US market is going to miss 500,000 developers. So even if companies had this much of capacity to hire new developers to create the software that people need, there are just not going to be enough people on the market. So the main reason, apart from not having the tools that people are looking for, is that the IT is just like a bottleneck that is not able to deliver the solutions, the application for the low level, like the department level or a team level. They're just trying to cover or deliver tools for the whole company.
It's a very good point, Tomasz. And the other thing as well, that mostly the users know the best what they need. So in classical ways, it was so that someone came up with an idea. Hey, actually, our users need that. And then they built something and spent millions of dollars or whatever. And then no one really adopted to that. And everyone was thinking, damn, what did we do wrong? So the whole citizen developer movement is putting the game upside down, which I always like to do. So in that sense, what you say makes a lot of sense.
I don't know if you remember the keynote from Ignite, from Satya Nadella. He said that today, like, it's already 2.5 million of developers. I mean, citizen developers. I mean, both developers and citizen developers using Power Platform, right? There are like over 500 million applications going to be created by 2023, I think, or two. I mean, in the nearest future. So this potential is just huge, and we can joke around about Power Platform that it's really hard to adopt. That the governance is sometimes missing, but this tool is really a game changer for most companies.
I mean, the potential is huge, but still, let's not forget, the tools like Nintex, who are around for, I don't know, a decade or so, and they are obviously much more robust in certain things. But of course, the journey where Power Platform and Power Automate is bringing us, the potential is just amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that in Power Apps and Power Automate, well, of course they come from the Dynamics world. They don't come from the SharePoint world like Nintex is. But it's nice that they can just use all these data sources within Office 365. That when an email comes in or when somebody writes down a form, I can have all these things happen. But for this episode, I really wanted to take a better look at the SharePoint integration with Power Apps, for example. Because as I said earlier before we were recording, I'm coming from a SharePoint world. I've been doing SharePoint for over 13 years now. Shit, that makes me old.
Wow. Right.
SharePoint teenager.
So I started working with SharePoint 2003. So I've been doing a number of Nintex projects where I was creating forms, where I was creating workflows, and it is just very easy. Also with an Nintex workflow, I feel like I can talk to a key user, to an end user for 30 minutes explaining Nintex workflow, and that person will be able to create their own workflows. I don't have the same feeling with Power Automate at the moment. Now, one of the things that I wanted to challenge today, Thomas, and you already prepared something.
Yeah, to that.
I heard. Put you on the spot. So the fact I'm coming from that SharePoint world, and one of the things that you always do, or what you typically do with Nintex forms, is when you have a list, you typically have your new and edit form and your view form, where you have all your list, all your fields underneath each other. And what you can do with Nintex is you can actually make that look pretty. You can put some structure in there. You can say, okay, I want this field to be there, that field to be there, stuff like that. And also, for example, if you have lots of fields, you can actually group those fields together with a subheader or something like that. Is something like that possible in Power Apps? Thomas.
So just a small disclaimer. As I said, I'm also coming from the same, I do have the same background as you do. Maybe just a few years later, a few years less, but still Nintex is my background. And
you look so young.
Yeah, but I started in 2012, right? So 5 years now.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I should share the screen right now, and then while talking, I will. This is that screen, I hope. So anyway,
not the YouPorn screen.
So yeah. Anyway, when I started working with Power Apps, it was also kind of difficult for me to really customize the form to, in the way that I actually would like it to. So first, when you open Power Apps for just a SharePoint list form, it is just straight, right? Everything is vertical, one field under the another. And because this is the form control, there is actually not much you can do about it in case of this flexibility that you remember from Nintex. And you can just drag and drop the controls over the canvas and just save it, and they will be there. So one of the things that I'm doing when I want to actually go beyond this basic canvas is there are like two settings that you have to be aware of. One setting and then one tree. The first one, when you are in the form settings, there is this option that says snap to columns, which is one of the most important things when you say, hey, it is just not flexible. So when you turn it off, you are actually somehow able to drag these controls on the canvas. So just give it a moment. Right, you can just like drag them on the canvas, and when you change their width, you're as well able to put them alongside, right? So that kind of works. So you can somehow reorder these fields on the canvas and work with their layout. Now, speaking about the grouping, because
or can I add some labels in there, or
labels, for example, right? So anytime you actually want to add here something, so you can just add like a label inside the form, just like this. You want just to take the label and then put it just here. So it is not going to be added to the form structure, so it will always be here. And then if you have a field that is like going to be expanded vertically, then it will just be overlapped by the label, because label is just not in the relation with any of the fields.
Yeah, if I scroll down, that will
right. It will just stay on that position. However, as you saw that when I'm just hovering and dragging this label, it is like going to be added to any of one of these existing groups of the field configuration, field properties, field controls. So like when I add it, now I can actually work with that. However, it is again not that flexible as you would like it to be. So the best approach that I'm trying to follow is that every time you have a label, a field, whatever in the form field group, is that everything here about the position of that item is done actually somehow relatively. So like it is relative to something else. And so speaking about this label, for example, here, hello, just let me press it. You can say that, okay, so I would like that the location of this item is going to be 0, 0, because I wanna that one is going to be the first one in the group, and then you can make relation to the label you've added to the second label that is actually the title of the field, that its Y location is, for example, 10 plus label to Y plus label to height, and therefore you have other fields that are currently in a relation to the title label also being pushed down, so that everything is now adjusting to the label you've added. And well, you can then play around with that, so you can change it.
That is awesome.
Yes, like you can change its size, you can change the feel, and then you could have the group's header. So that is the one approach. If you want to really stick to the forms, right? So like forms, they determine the fixed layout and rather hard customization of the look and feel. However, if you do decide to just get rid of the layout of the form, and then you'd go only to put fields on that, right? Just you can create the form on your own, and
okay, cool.
You know,
when you link those fields to data values.
Yeah, it's much more of work to be done, because then on a lot of the screen you have to actually link these fields to specific fields from the data source. However, then on save, what you also have to do is not to simply use, as you would be using with the form submit form expression, because that won't work. There is no form anymore. But you would have to use the patch. So you're now not submitting a form, you're patching data source. And in this approach, you can have a totally flexible layout. You can have the form controls wherever you are, wherever you want, however you want them to be positioned. You can have groups, you can have headers. Everything is up to you. You're just a full owner of the layout. But then you have to use the dispatch function expression to actually update or create new item.
Tomasz, can you also have an influence on the canvas size?
Sure.
How do you do that?
Really? You see, EarthFM.
Yeah. I never read the FM.
When you go to settings, I mean, settings is also one of these areas of power-ups where you can look up the new cool features that are still in preview or maybe are going to be rolled out soon. But it's also the place where you can change the layout of the canvas, both the orientation and size. So you can make it custom. So it kind of works. However, when speaking about the SharePoint form, there is actually not much you can do, because even though you, for example, said that width is 1,500 pixels, then still what you will see is going to be only narrowed down to this pane. I mean, this tile that is overlapping the SharePoint list. So
that was actually my underlying question.
Yes, so if you do set this width to be wider, then proportions of the canvas showing up in the SharePoint list form, then it will be just scaled. So it will be like thinner, but the width is going to be like
thinner, but shorter, right?
Right, thinner but shorter. Yeah, I mean wider but shorter. Like
yeah. Okay. So you're actually saying that. So I'm coming from my Nintex thing. We're not being sponsored by Nintex in any way, by the way. So if I'm coming from my Nintex, where I'm changing my form layout, I can actually do that in two different ways, or I can just build everything myself and use the patch functionality, or I can insert items into the form and play around with the relative width and height so that I can actually position them a little bit better.
So,
okay.
Generally speaking, this when you're creating form or when you're creating anything like the application, using those relative settings that one field is relative to another or one field is relative to the canvas width and height is really important, because like one day you will be able to use the real responsiveness of the Power Apps, then not having these locations and then width and height set as relative will just make you really on the lost side, because you'll have then to rebuild your application. Now,
they're not really responsive.
Yeah,
that looks pretty.
Not very sexy.
No, but the reason I think why I am not that much in tune with Power Apps and Power Automate is that as soon as you want to do anything, you actually need to start writing down those formulas, those Excel-like formulas, and I think that is kind of a bummer for me. And so, I guess for a lot of citizen developers as well, because this really feels like developing something.
Yeah.
So I have a development background. So in school, I actually was a developer by school study, but this actually feels like proper developing. While when I'm in my Nintex forms, when I'm in my Nintex flow, I'm not really developing. I'm just dragging and dropping stuff.
Drag and drop and draw.
Yeah, and just selecting fields and done.
Yep.
And here, so if I want to do anything, I'm always writing something that feels like code. Right,
but again, speaking about these formulas, one thing I heard from the grapevine is that one day these old expressions are going to be unified. So you'll be able to use the same language, the same expressions language, both in Power Automate and Power Apps. So that's one thing that I'm really looking forward, and I hope it will arrive soon. But another thing about the expressions is that obviously you can use formulas and rules in Nintex. Rules were also available in Power Apps for like 3 months ago, and then they were deprecated because the product team found them just useless, since users were more keen to be using expressions. And it turns out, I mean, personally,
so are we talking regular expressions?
No, I mean expressions like formulas
you
can just put here in as a function.
Okay, yeah. So because I couldn't believe that anyone would prefer regular expressions above anything else.
Sorry,
you can discuss with Adis about this.
Yes, exactly.
So no, I meant the expressions, the formulas we have.
Gotcha.
So I personally feel that being able to write a function is just giving me a little bit more of the power and control over how it is going to behave. So the formulas in Nintex
is that the power in Power Apps and Power Automate? The power, the expression that gives you the power. That's where the power in Power Apps is coming from.
With more power comes more responsibility.
Exactly.
Well, I think that what gives you power is just this ability to use those tools and then to be considered as a kind of a god by your coworkers or right. Yeah. So anyway, when in Nintex, I had several situations that even though I thought my formula, my rule is just perfect and it should work, it was not working for, I don't know, whatever reason. And here in Power Apps or Power Automate, the cool thing is as well that you're able, and that is something I really love, that you have this live preview of what your formula is going to return. So like once you start to type, now what is the name? Text input, like one text. And then I already have, as you can see, oh, no, it doesn't work. Sorry, I just wanted to zoom it. But anyway, I have already the preview of what my formula is going to return. So like, even if I have a complex formula, I can debug it live, whether I'm rewriting this formula properly or maybe not. Maybe something is missing out. Sure. Whereas in Nintex, whenever you want to try if your formula is working, you have to make the preview and again the preview and preview. Another thing that I really like here about creating is that anytime you want to actually check if that's working or not, you just have to press the play button or simply press the left Alt button on the keyboard, and you're like able already to use the canvas as an application. So it's much faster to author, and it doesn't require you to every time save, preview, save, preview, save, preview, and then repeat this thing over and over again. And you find yourself in a situation with like hundreds of major versions of your form.
Would you think, Tomasz, that the Power App, like the canvas building we do right now, as Marijn said, right, that it really feels like programming? Would you think that it would evolve in a way that you could start just drawing it like in Nintex?
Well, we're always talking about Nintex, but I mean, Infopad had the same kind of functionality.
Well, even SharePoint Designer had this possibility, this functionality to just drag and drop controls on the canvas, right? There is this project from Microsoft that you like sketch note a canvas of a form, and then AI is converting it into a working form.
Yeah.
So yeah, possibly, why not? One day that should be possibly easier. But right now, what I'm really looking forward is that you have the same expressions working in both Power Automate and Power Apps. So that's a game changer, and this responsiveness. So like today, the only way to do a responsive Power App is to actually, again, define the relations between the canvas and location and width and heights, and just manually create this responsiveness behavior.
Okay, hey, really cool insights. Marijn, didn't you have some second challenge you wanted to go through?
Yeah. So I've got so I've got this SharePoint list coming from an old SharePoint environment. When I want to move that to SharePoint Online with responsive design, all these columns are so wide, and I can't fit it on one page anymore. So I was thinking, I'm going to use Power Apps to put everything back together and to really make some kind of dashboard out of it. And then I was looking at the data tables, but these data tables really don't give you a lot of functionality. So they look pretty cool. They look like this is all I need, because it's just like, give me everything that's in this table, and then I can just select which fields I want to show and which fields I don't want to show. But can they do, for example, grouping? Can I do my conditional formatting here? These are the things that I really want to be able to do, because on my SharePoint 2010 old application, what I had there was I had some how do you call that? So I had these green, orange, red buttons when a certain value was over or under a specific value.
To be honest, for this specific purpose, I would not go into Power Apps. I would certainly look into either column formatting or the views formatting. So
yes, but the problem is then we've got this my SharePoint list with 10 fields, for example, will not fit on my one screen anymore.
Well, maybe you just don't need to have them all present, or maybe you can just shrink them, because as well in SharePoint Online, you're able somehow to change the width of the column.
Even that doesn't work very well.
Even that doesn't work. So, right. Back to this solution. So no, the data tables are not able to group or to give you this conditional formatting functionality. What I was thinking as well, was that if maybe that's not enough for you, maybe if that's
so
not
should I really create a gallery then instead of a data table?
That was the suggestion I was thinking of. So I was thinking about
but then with the gallery, you really need to build everything. It's
from
just
scratch.
like with the patch system earlier. So, or we build some kind of workaround in it, or we throw everything out and build everything on our own.
Well, so what I wanted to say is not something that you possibly would like to hear, but yes, yes. If you, I mean, with the gallery, you do have more of the flexibility on how the data in a grid is being displayed. You can, I mean,
you can throw some icons in there, and
you can throw icons. You can throw custom labels. You can throw custom fields if you wanted. You also, I mean, for me, for example, when I put several data tables on a page and like they were related, so the record cited in the first table was filtering data in the second table, and then there was navigation to move to the form.
Parent-child.
Yes. So then I was actually finding myself in a situation that this selection in the first table was getting lost for some reason. It was just being reset to the first row every time. And then when I used the gallery, everything started to work more stable, smooth. So yes, using gallery is again requiring you to create the whole header row and then each field and then to work with the widths and heights of the labels. But then you'll be thankful that you did that job, because this will give you this like feeling that you have really the control over this data. But it is still not giving you like the grouping and conditional formatting.
Conditional formatting will work here, absolutely.
It will work, but the grouping no. So speaking about the grouping, you would probably need to create a couple of galleries, and then clicking on the one gallery that is like a header gallery is expanding again a field that is in that row of the gallery that shows related data. So that should somehow work, so that you just put a gallery in a gallery.
Put a gallery in a gallery.
That sounds fishy.
Yeah,
it does.
That's gallery inception.
But yes, it's gallery inception. But you can actually do that. So you can try to put one gallery that shows sub items, and then first gallery that is showing the header items, and then you could have sort of a grouping. But this could be quite a lot of work, because But I would start really first with the views formatting, because maybe there is something you're just missing, and that's.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I tried view formatting, but the problem with view formatting is that you end up with a few hundred lines of code, and if there is nobody else looking to it, there will at some point they will say, okay, we need an extra field. And then you can add that field, but then you also need to add that field to your view formatting. Otherwise, it will not show up. So that means that somebody has to dive into the code and start to build it.
Right, but the same is going to happen if you use Power Apps. So this field will not automatically appear in your data table or gallery.
Exactly.
So, I mean, moving away from built-in SharePoint list is just giving you this additional effort on maintenance. You can as well try to build an SPFX solution, right?
I can't, but anyway.
That is going to work the fastest possible, and this is going to be the most flexible and the most, let's say, crafted tailored to your own needs.
Well, but then again, SPFX is really a proper development solution. I consider myself also, if I'm gonna build something, I consider myself more a citizen developer and not a proper real developer. So my last question, I changed my stuff. I made a Power App. How do I roll it out? How do I roll it out to my SharePoint people? So with my Nintex workflow, with my Nintex form, I just save it and it's done, and I don't have anything else. Now, I made a small Power App earlier, and so now I have to give my users access to my data source. I have to give my users access to the Power Apps functionality. I have to give them access to my Power App as well. So do you have any like 5 recommendations on how to roll out a Power App or a flow? Things like, yeah, don't roll it out under your own name, but use a service account or something like that.
So if that is a Power App that you built for a SharePoint list, then it is just going to be automatically available for everyone that has an access to the SharePoint list.
Okay.
But
if you're coming from the list.
If it's coming from the list,
it's
right?
Not if I run it from the Power Apps app on my cell phone, then it needs to be something else.
Right. So if you then create a standalone application, the Canvas application, then there are like 2 things that you have to remember. First is that, when you add data sources, and even though that the user has an access to it or to them, they will still be asked for like a consent that this application is going to use these data sources on their behalf. And that is something that I call a small showstopper, because the less technical user you have that is seeing this prompt is like, oh, what should I do? Like, why is this asking me for the permissions?
Yeah.
So that is a little bit confusing, but it's just being shown one time. And if you have a premium account, premium license for Power Apps, then you can as well use PowerShell command to turn it off for this specific application. So there is a workaround for that, but it's premium.
Okay.
And then another thing is that still when accessing specific data sources, users are going to work on their behalf. So that's not a point to publish Power App under a service account or not, because in the end, this is them going to be using those connections and acting on in logs. If you would like to create a flow that is, sending emails, and you'd like to have them always sent from a specific account, then obviously you should look into child flows, and then having just a single connection defined under a specific account that is using these emails. That is one solution. But as said, every time you just roll out the application to users, whether it's Flow or Power App, the connections, most of the connections are going to be using their own credentials, so they will be acting on their behalf. And well, yeah, that's like up to you if you want to share the application with the whole company or just with the specific users. The more you are going to create those Power Apps, possibly you'll find yourself in a situation that you should have a higher governance on them. So then you would need to look into environments and create environments dedicated to, for example, specific departments, or create one environment for testing and production, and then the creation of the new solutions, then the other environment for productive applications that are going to be rolled out to the company, or environments dedicated to specific teams that are only going to have an access to, and so on and so on. So as more you consume over the functionalities of the Power Platform, the more you should get into the Power Platform administration topics and governance, and and those things that are not very much visible to the end users.
I think there's definitely good stuff for another follow-up episode. It's really how to do proper governance on.
Really, so like, I don't know if you remember, there is the couple. I mean, they're not a couple, but they're just working together and then co-creating together. Is Andrew Welsh and Manuela? Oh, I've forgotten. Pitcher. Yeah, I think that's she.
Yeah,
that's her. Mm-hmm. And they're working on the Power Platform adoption framework.
Okay.
So it's like Power Platform AF.
Power Platform AF. I like that.
And I mean, if there is anything in this world around governance and adoption of the Power Platform, of tools, of patterns, of samples, that anyone should know. They're the ones who knows it for sure. So if you would like to have really one episode dedicated to Power Platform adoption and how to do it properly, how to convince manager, IT department to roll out Power Platform, and then how to make this adoption successful, then these two people are just a perfect guests to answer these questions.
There's also, I think we could ask also Waldek from Rencor, because I know that they are cooking something, the guys from Rencor, about Power Platform governance, you know. So in a bit of a similar what they have done with the old, SPCAF. So very powerful stuff. So I have been in contact with Rencor for some customers in Switzerland because of that, and here in the Nordics. So yeah, I could actually ask Waldek to come at some point to ours.
Yeah, I asked him to come to Warsaw, to SPS Warsaw, and he said no.
Oh no!
Really?
I didn't. I wasn't in contact with him, but just rumors say he's very busy recently, so he's not very much coming to events.
But hey,
that's okay. I still want to come to SPS Warsaw. I think my invitation got somewhere lost in the mail, I think, but
this time, Marijn, bring proper pants.
I don't think I saw your submission.
You didn't think you saw it? Oh, anyway, no, let's look at it. Let's talk about it later.
No, I just remember you once going to the queue to the club and you didn't come in because you were wearing shorts.
I know, that sucked. Monkey balls. Because afterwards, I heard you guys had an amazing party. So yeah. Oh well.
Especially Rick.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, cool. Hey, this was very, very interesting.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Tomasz.
Mine is blown.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and you were not as rude as I thought.
No. We are nice to the juniors.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Anyway, great insights. Yeah, let's see if we can do a follow-up later on.
Yeah, sure, certainly.
This year, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to see you in Helsinki and somewhere else before, I guess.
All right.
Looking forward. There's some special stuff coming up. Yeah. Looking really forward.
I'm looking kind of forward to that. But
at the same time.
Really sure. Yes.
And finally return your swimming pants, Marijn.
What is it with me and pants and traveling? I always seem to lose pants.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, guys.
I'm detecting a pattern here, so okay.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Bye.
Right, guys. Cheers.